And David's also been going to extraordinary lengths to uncover the mystery of the machete bins. And it's been very entertaining to watch. So I thought, who better to invite to the show than, guys, David Limbrick. So, hi.
G'day. I'm honoured to be your first guest.
Very few politicians in the world that I like, but David, you've managed to make that very short list.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you.
So,
now,
David,
sorry, Carly, I need to jump in with a point of order here. We need to be very careful not to claim that the bins were $325,000 each. I have been restricted on Facebook for the crime of pointing out the fact that it was a $13 million program with however many bins, and that works out to be $300,000 per bin. And the fact that they spent a bunch of the money on advertising to make us aware that the bins exist doesn't really change the fact that they spent that much on a bunch of bins. I'm currently in a mild form of Facebook prison. My reach has been restricted on Facebook for daring to suggest that they spent that much per bin. So let's steer away from that and take that as a given.
Sure. Well, I've never claimed that, but I know that the Liberal Party have been claiming that a lot. And I think there was a fact check put out a few days ago, but they didn't fact check the manufacturer of the bins and the things that I said. And I'd like them to fact check my stuff, actually.
Dave, do you want to bring everyone up to speed? I mean, we were talking about, we played your videos on Wednesday's episode of you going around, and I really appreciate your sense of humor doing this because, you know, it seems a lot like the Labor Party does, and Labor sycophants don't understand how business works, that if, you know, you spend $13 million and you divide that between, you know, the 40 or so bins that we got, that's how you arrive at that figure. It may not have cost you that, but the cost of doing that business arrives at the $300,000. So bring everyone up to speed with where you're at, because I know you gave us all an update today.
Yeah, so of course the bins were announced, and it worked out at $13 million for these 40 bins. And of course, I never thought that the bins cost $300,000 each, but they cost something, right? And so the obvious question is, how much do the bins cost? Who made the bins? And what's the rest of the money being used for? And that's sort of the mystery of the machete bins that I've been trying to follow up. And thank you to everyone that's given me hints on this, because a lot of this has actually just come from people contacting me. So I heard a rumor, this was a couple of weeks ago, I heard a rumor that the bins were made in prison. And I couldn't confirm this, but I asked the corrections minister whether that was true. Now, in Parliament, he sort of gave me a non-answer, and I think the truth is he didn't actually know at the time, which is why he gave a waffly sort of answer. He could have just said, I don't know. But anyway, I really wish politicians would say that more often. Just say, look, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'll get back to you. But anyway, he basically didn't know. But he did, to his credit, he did give me an answer later. And the answer was very precise in its wording, which made me very suspicious. The answer, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically it said the bins were not made by Corrections Victoria, which made me even more suspicious because I know that not all of the corrections facilities are actually run by Corrections Victoria, because in Victoria we have private prisons as well, such as Ravenhall. And in fact, other states have private prisons as well, such as South Australia. And so on the radio, there was someone called in and said, oh, yeah, I was a truck driver and I drove them from Mount Gambier to Laverton. And I thought, that's interesting. I wonder if that's true. Why would you drive them from Mount Gambier to Laverton? That seems quite odd. And so we did a bit of digging around, and there is a prison in Mount Gambier Prison. And, someone contacted me with a photo of a facility in Laverton, and they showed the bins there. And sure enough, that facility, if you look it up on Google Maps, which my team did, you find out that facility is owned by the company called G4S, which is the same company that runs the prison in Mount Gambier. I've since had a number of other people contact me and say that it was made in Mount Gambier in South Australia. But I've also had other people contact me and say that they were made at Ravenhall Prison in Victoria. And I have pretty good source on this as well. But they said that they made them, but only about a dozen or so were made at Ravenhall. So the current working hypothesis is that the bins were made in prison and they were made at various prisons, both here in Victoria and in South Australia. And in fact, I'm going to try and confirm that through a documents motion in Parliament this week on Wednesday. We're going to be asking for the invoices. So that's sort of part of it. The other thing that I did is I went to a metal fabricator in the southeast and got an actual quote put together, like how much would it cost if I wanted to get 40 of these bins, how much would it cost per bin? Now, he came up with the figure of around about just under $4,000, including delivery. Now, the price from the government said between $2,400 and $2,800, depending on delivery or not. And so it's under market price, which would make sense if you're building them in prisons. Now, I don't actually have a problem with them being built in prisons. I think what everyone's so interested in here is like the government is so secretive about everything that they should just be upfront. Like, I don't think people, like, if the government said to us, oh, well, we wanted to get them cheap because we're only going to use them for a few months, they don't have to last long term, and we thought it was a good idea to get prisoners to build them because they're building skills and stuff, I don't think anyone would have had a real problem with that. Like, maybe some people, but I wouldn't have. I would have thought that's fine. But the real question now is, what's the rest of that $13 million going on? Because it's only $100,000 odd that's going on the bins. And so, of course, some of that's advertising, and that's what I've been looking at. So today, in the video that I posted today, we managed to track down a whole bunch of social media advertising, like crap loads of it, 20, like just on Facebook alone, from the Department of Justice's Facebook account, they've got 20 ads running simultaneously now in about 10 different languages. But that's just one platform. So I'm assuming that, and I think it's a fair assumption, that they're advertising across other platforms. I've had people contacting me saying that they've seen ads on Reddit, they've seen ads on YouTube. I assume that we'll soon see television and radio ads. So they're spending a lot of money on advertising. How much, I don't know yet, but I'll find out.
Yeah.
It's an incredible... Sorry, I was just going to comment on this advertising issue. This is a long-running issue, and this is one of the earlier issues that I researched back in 2010, I believe, and I didn't do a video on it back then. But the realization that we are having, in some years, over $100 million being spent on government advertising just in one state, just in Victoria. Other years, it's less than that. And officially, they're not supposed to be able to use taxpayers' money to advertise anything unless it is for the public good. It's a necessary public awareness campaign around some action that the government is taking. It can't be for partisan political purposes. But we see this get twisted all the time. We saw with the big build, we saw a lot of advertising around that, and they would claim that they were notifying people about closures or disruptions or where to find more information. But ultimately, it was a puff piece about the big build. And it concerns me deeply that we have a situation where they seem to have free rein to spend money on, whether it's consultants in the case of The Voice, in the case of COVID advice, etc., whether it's on advertising, enormous sums of money. And there doesn't seem to be any easy mechanism for transparency, David. You mentioned that you sort of have some idea where to look for certain things, but to really get a picture of this, you would have to draw information from dozens of different places and collate that together. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, some of it is in the budget papers. Some of it you can get through the Parliamentary Accounts and Estimates Committee. I'm not a member of that committee. I was in the last term of Parliament, so you do get the opportunity to quiz ministers. I accept that sometimes it's necessary for a government to advertise things, especially in the case of machetes, right? You're making something illegal that wasn't legal yesterday, and people need to know about that because, you know, they could potentially be facing criminal charges. And if you don't know about it, like, you know, and lots of people use machetes for, you know, camping and agriculture and things like this. If they don't know, then they're in trouble. But I mean, you mentioned the big build. Yeah, I mean, that's more questionable, I think, because, you know, do people need to know about that? Like, I don't know. Like, the thing is, right, like, I've had problems with advertising ever since the pandemic, because what happened when the pandemic hit and we had the lockdowns, all of the commercial advertisers pulled out. So you would have seen on the radio and television, advertisers just pulled out, even on bus stops and billboards and everything. Like, advertisers just pulled out because they couldn't sell their products. They were worried about finances. All of a sudden, the biggest advertiser in the market was the government. And that sets up all these really, really bad incentives where, you know, the media is meant to be reporting on and criticizing the government, but also they're really the hand that is feeding them at that point. And it's a big problem. So look, I do accept that sometimes governments do need to advertise things to make people aware of things. But I mean, this machete ban, it should never have been a thing in the first place. It's just so stupid. I don't think that anyone, including people in the government, believe that criminals are going to be putting their things in these bins. We actually saw one guy putting his machete in a bin. He had a sore foot. It was in one of those boots. And like he used to be a tiler. And he said sometimes he'd get jobs outside where there'd be like an overgrown garden and he'd use it to hack up the garden. But he said he hasn't done tiling for years and it's just been sitting in his shed going all rusty. So he thought he'd better bring it in so he doesn't go to jail. So, I think that's probably typical of the type of people that are putting them in the bin.
Oh, hi. You're still here. I just assumed everyone had left because Carly always falls asleep. Let's be honest. Oh, is that just me? I fall asleep because Carly... I don't know. Anyway, you're still here. So, did you just hit the... Carly, did you just reach... Seriously? Can you not leave well enough alone?
No, I must infiltrate every part of your life.
Back to me. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, because I suffer through Carly twice a week for you. I drive hours from where I live down to Melbourne to be tortured by Carly every week, and I do it for you because I love you so much. So please help me out. Just like, comment, subscribe, share the show, make sure that everyone else can join in the fun, and show up next week for like more Oddcasty goodness. And if you really, really want to help me, then you can buy me a coffee via that little QR code there. You'll be supporting the show and helping me to tolerate Carly.